And now it's back to David Speers.
Helen, thank you very much for that. Let's bring in our panel. Joining us this Monday afternoon, our panel of political strategists. With me here in Canberra, Grahame Morris from Barton Deakin, and joining us from the Sky News Centre, Bruce Hawker from Campaigns and Communications. Welcome to you both. I want to start on this Border Protection Operation Sovereign Borders announcement from the Minister today. Grahame, as we've been discussing, one of the main elements here is less information on an ongoing basis in regards to boat arrivals and whether they're turning back boats or not. Do you have any issues about this?
Well, I watched the first briefing and I thought it was actually quite good, but I can see the hook in all of this, and that is, look, trying to have weekly briefings so that you don't give these people smugglers lots of information. I sort of understood that, but will it work? You know, while ever people can tweet or email or anything from Christmas Island onto the mainland to journalists, you're going to have outbreaks. So you're going to have grumpy journalists who didn't get the story in the first place. So it's going to be a little bit untidy.
And you know the way the media works, it's going to be almost a bit more interesting when they find out about it.
Well, indeed. And I just wondered, this is probably naive, but I just wonder if you could ask John Stanhope on Christmas Island to bring together his 2,000 people on Christmas Island with the Minister and a few others and just say, look, can we have a go at seeing if this works, say until Christmas? So give us a few months, just hold on, and let's see for everyone's sake if this might work. Now, human nature being human nature, I suspect everyone is still going to leak, and that's going to be the difficulty.
I guess the bottom line is, what impact will this have on people smugglers, Grahame? I mean, is finding out weekly rather than daily?
I would have liked today, and I hope Scott Morrison, the General, does this between now and Christmas, but explain more how the information is being misused
at the moment
by the people smugglers. There was a slight reference today that said, well, we had the shipping news line, but there was a slight reference there to a smuggler might say to a potential client, well, look, I've got a boatload on the seas now, we'll wait till Thursday. They could tweet back, and then you know, you'll see that it's okay, you can get on the next boat. Maybe that's how they do it. But I think we ought to be explaining to the people what it is that the people smugglers are doing with this information. Then we can all understand.
And presumably the people smuggler can now say, yeah, my boat got through, you just didn't hear about it because of this new this new policy.
Yeah.
Bruce, what do you make of this? Is it worth a go, though, as Grahame says? If it is going to have an impact, does it really matter whether we're finding out daily or weekly? If it's going to help, give it a go.
Well, I don't hear any of the then opposition complaining about the weekly or daily announcements by the government. When we were in government, that was never a concern of theirs.
No.
I think that they should be making daily announcements in the interest of transparency. If they think this is a robust policy, then they should go ahead and do it. Look, you know, we always found it uncomfortable, I've got to say, having to come out and say, oh, another boat's come across the horizon. It was never something that anybody particularly wanted to do, and there was a lot of grumbling inside the government about why do we have to do this, but generally it was accepted that the public have a right to know. But I've got some other issues with it, David, which go beyond that. I think this 48-hour turnaround is particularly worrying. All the advice that we were receiving in government was that you needed a full week in order to get the proper vaccinations done for people who were going to be taken to other places, particularly Manus Island. And now they're saying that it can be done within 48 hours. I think the real danger in this is that they set themselves up for a High Court challenge. And that's a very silly thing to do, because that none has been forthcoming yet in any serious sort of a way. And I think they're potentially exposing themselves.
This was the point Richard Marles was making as well. I mean, it is the Australian government, Grahame, that's sending them to Manus Island, and we know there are disease concerns there. It is the Australian government's responsibility, isn't it, to vaccinate them before doing that?
Well, I sort of bought the idea that if they're fit enough to get on a boat and come all this way to Australia, they're fit enough to go back again.
But if we're sending them to somewhere else, to Manus Island, where there are disease issues...
Yeah, well, then they can get treated there. We'll have medical facilities and all that sort of stuff there. What's the difference between there and Manus?
It might be too late in terms of vaccinating them.
Yeah.
Well, look, if there's any doubt, if somebody's got a severe infection and bronchitis and half,
they can be totally healthy. But if you went
malaria.
to Manus, you'd want to have vaccinations before you go there. That's what I'm saying.
Well, maybe it's another blinking good deterrent.
Look, you're missing the point
The
here.
deterrent of catching some
You get a
tropical
disease.
disease.
Come to Australia and get a disease.
Seriously?
Look, yeah, there is nothing wrong with as a target. He said a target, but a target of turning things around and getting them back in 48 hours. What's wrong with that?
Can I say?
Well, the
problem-
vaccination thing.
Yeah.
Well, how long does it take to have a needle?
Well, it's got to take effect.
This is the problem. Yeah, this is a very real problem actually. The medical advice I think was very strong to the previous government that you needed a full week in which to do this, and all the legal advice backed this up. We looked at this very carefully at the time when the New Guinea solution was being introduced. So I'm not just speculating here. This really potentially does expose the government to a challenge. By people saying, well, you've actually not taken appropriate action to protect these people, even if they are en route to Manus Island. And if you do that, then you're in danger of actually ending up having a real problem in being able to take them onto Manus, which frankly was working as a deterrent.
Bruce, at the end of the day, clearly the new government approach is to give this a lot more of a military flavour, a lot more of a serious tone. We are seeing changes announced here. We have seen, certainly in the last week, I think only one boat with 31 people on it arrive, according to what we were told today. Now, who takes credit for that, I suppose, will be debated. But you'd have to say at this early stage, things are looking a lot better for this new government in dealing with this issue.
Well, the advice that we were receiving during the election campaign was that the people smugglers were desperately trying to get people onto boats, that it was actually acting as a very serious deterrent to them. And that was one of the reasons why we were determined not to change any of the arrangements with respect to people smugglers, because it was having the desired effect. Now, look, I think by the time the next election comes around, if the people smugglers have been done out of a job, then it's more likely that this government will get the credit for it than the previous government, even though they set up they set up the processes by which we were going to stop the people smugglers being able to ply their deadly trade. But no, that's politics. That's the way things occur. But I think the most important thing here is to make sure that people aren't making that perilous trip on that boat. It's just shocking, and anything that can be done to stop that should be done.
Well, I think everyone agrees with that. We'll take a quick break, and then I want to turn to the resignations that have been tendered by almost all of the NBN board today. Stay with us. Back to the program, talking to Grahame Morris and Bruce Hawker. I just want to tell you we've just received in the latest from the Australian Electoral Commission. There were two close seats. One now has been declared for Labor's Rob Mitchell, the seat of McEwen in Labor, with the final outcome there, 345 votes. He was in front. But the other one, Fairfax, which everyone's watching, well, they are recounting that. Clive Palmer ended up on the first count, 36 votes ahead of the LNP candidate. They are still recounting the preferences. And once they've done that, if it's still less than 100 votes, then they'll go through and count all of the primary votes for both the two leading candidates. So it's still a bit of a wait there in the division of Fairfax, but Clive Palmer at the moment still the one who's finished just in front. Now I want to turn to the NBN, the National Broadband Network, today. Most of the board have tendered their resignations. They haven't yet formally been accepted. Well, we haven't got any comment yet from the Communications Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, on this. It's expected it will go to the next Cabinet meeting. Already Mike Quigley, the Chief Executive, announced his departure back in July, and the expectation is that the former Telstra boss, Ziggy Switkowski, will take over as Executive Chairman as the new government implements some significant changes to how the NBN rollout is going to take place. Grahame, is the departure of the bulk of the board a good thing?
Well, I think it's an honourable thing. It means that the bulk of the board has done the honourable thing, because there was only one board meeting before the next Cabinet decision when they're going to consider all of this. So they've sort of done what you would expect them to do. Do you know that the credentials of one of the people on the board to do this massive, big rollout is that he wrote a book once just saying this is how the Labor Party should succeed and they should be more like the Greens. And we all wonder why the NBN has spent $5 billion in 4 years, has gone to 2% of the houses, and the rest of the 98% of the country's missed out. No wonder. I think we do need a new board.
Well, do you think they were jumped or pushed?
No, I think that honour and common sense prevailed. So they say, well, look, the minister is a bit iffy about us. We ought to do the right thing and give him the option of reappointing a couple of us, or bringing in his own people, or sacking the lot of us.
Bruce,
It was the one who didn't.
well, according to reports, the one who didn't was Kerry Schott, who's expected to be one of the only directors to stay on. Bruce, given the significant change that Malcolm Turnbull wants to make to the NBN, making it fibre to the node rather than fibre to the home, and a number of other changes as well, is it such a bad thing that there's largely a new board in place?
Look, I think it's within the rights of the incoming government to appoint a new board to a government-owned corporation. I think that almost goes without saying, David. I think it's probably a lesser question than the sense in abandoning fibre to the home rather than fibre to the node. Clearly, they're going to go down this second-rate option. It's a real shame, but I would have thought that the new minister has every right to make that decision about the board if that's his desire. You know, someone like Kerry Schott, by the way, I think they should grab and not let go. I mean, she's extremely capable and has had a lot of experience both in government and the private sector. So there are some very talented people, I'm sure, on that board, but I think the fundamental principle is right. If he wants to remove them and replace them with his own people, then so be it.
Let's talk about the Labor leadership contest that is ongoing between Anthony Albanese and Bill Shorten. Bruce, how do you think the two are going? Is either one doing a better job of trying to win over the membership at the moment?
Well, I think Anthony Albanese is probably going to have a greater appeal with the rank and file membership of the party, and he will be directing his campaign very much at those people. Bill Shorten, though, will have an advantage because, being from the right of the Labor Party, he will have significantly more members in the parliamentary caucus. And remember that you have to weigh the 50% of the votes coming from the rank and file. That's about 40,000 people, perhaps, and 70-something on the other side. So the vote of an individual member of parliament is going to massively outweigh that of a rank and file member, something which I was never very happy with, I might say, but in politics it is the art of the possible. So
you would have had a much more limited role for the caucus than the membership.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of the Canadian system where we have 100% of the vote is done by the party membership, and the experience in Canada has been a massive growth in the party membership. Mind you, there are signs that even with this 50-50 arrangement, party membership is growing substantially in the Labor Party, so it's having a desired effect. It's encouraging people to come back and be part of the show.
Grahame, how do you think this is all going?
I think it's becoming silly. There's just no discussion really between the two men and the two leaders.
Well, there's no policy difference, is there?
On policy. You know, at the moment it will be Albanese's new teeth are really nicer than Shorten's. It's silly. You know, it ought to be about, do we as a party and do I as a leader own the idea of having a big deficit in the past? Was that a good idea? Do we as a party own this dopey carbon tax policy that so far has cost Julia Gillard 16 seats and Kevin Rudd 13 seats? That's whatever it is, 29 seats. They want to go again with another one. You know, these are the sort of things they ought to be talking about, and they can't promise anything because of the caucus and the national convention and all that sort of stuff, but they could give some guidance and say, look, this is my view and this is what I will take to the caucus.
Bruce, it's a fair point, isn't it? It'd make a bit more sense and give members a bit more of a chance to make a choice, wouldn't it, if there was something different between the two of them?
I think Graham's a little bit frustrated there, David. I think he'd rather we were talking about these things in the past.
But it's a good point, isn't it?
I think both those members are actually addressing issues with the rank and file membership. They're sending out material on a daily, twice, 3 times daily basis, from what I can see.
And it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. They even when it comes to admitting one thing they got wrong in government, the single parents pension, both of them agree they got it wrong.
Well, people will make up their minds about the two candidates, not just on the basis of the materials that are being put to them, but on what they know of them, what their leadership qualities and so forth are. Look, I think people can huff and puff as much as they like about this, but this process is going quite well. No one out there is getting upset about it, apart from Grahame Morris, who'd rather have a system of one party, well, one leader takes all. That's not the system the Labor Party's embraced, and they've done it for very good reason, because they have to become much more democratic than they have been in the past. That's accepted in the Labor Party now.
It's been a very careful campaign on this first outing for the new rules. We did try to get the two together for some debates that would have included the policy issues. They've said no to that, but they are going to debate tomorrow night in Sydney, and they'll do a couple of others as well. It'll be moderated by the President of the ALP in New South Wales, Michael Lee, will be in the middle, and they'll each get to make speeches and take some questions from members. So we'll see.
Just get 2 sets of dentures. An elbow wins. Vote one, elbow's teeth. That's the only blinking difference.
Right.
Well, there you go. Right. We have a debate, and Graham's not even satisfied with that. Look, this is the way it's going to be in the future in the Labor Party, and I think if you're in the Liberal Party now, you should be having a good hard look at it and saying maybe we've got to start democratising our party as well, because a lot of things inside the Liberal Party that could do with a significant update.
Well, we will see how things go over the coming week and catch up with you both then to see the lay of the land. Bruce Hawker, Grahame Morris, great to talk to both.